The Answer's Debate Night coverage with Jennifer Horn, David Hernandez, and Jeffi Girgenti.
Thank you for joining us and welcome. It is The Answer special debate night coverage. I'm Jennifer Horn, usually on the Morning Answer, heard right here on this very radio station, 6 to 9 a.m., joined by my co-host this evening, and so glad to be with both of you. My buddies from way back, David Hernandez is here, Jeffi Girgenti is here. They are the hosts of the LA Hispanic Republican Club radio show, which is always a mouthful, but I love to tune in and listen to you guys because you really do have your pulse on the conservative movement, particularly here in California. So thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
It's nice to be here in the daytime.
I know, isn't it?
Yeah, right?
You still got a little bit of sun out there.
Yep.
So we are going to jump into it today because this is a big night for Salem Radio. We are officially partnering on the debate, the third Republican debate, alongside the RNC and NBC News. Now, this debate is going to start right here at 5 o'clock local time. We'll have complete coverage for you. And then after, you won't want to miss a minute of coverage live from the spin room. Some of your favorite Salem personalities will be there giving their commentary on what we are about to see. But our job tonight is to get you ready, to get you primed, and have a little bit of fun. We've got 5 candidates on the stage tonight. They are facing off in Miami. It's worth noting, and we'll talk about the Trump factor in a few moments, but it's worth noting that Donald Trump at the same time will be doing a rally literally 11 miles away from where the 5 Republicans will be on stage. This is the debate hosted by, again, NBC News, Salem Radio. Will start at the top of the hour. It's going to be moderated by not only our colleague and friend Hugh Hewitt, but also Lester Holt, who is the anchor, of course, for NBC Nightly News, and Meet the Press moderator, Kristen Welker. They will be joined by our buddy Hugh. Now, the participants tonight, guys. It's where we have to begin. On the stage, it's going to be a smaller crowd, which might give these candidates some more room to spread out or maybe more time to argue if you've seen the previous 2 debates. We've got New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. We have Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. We have former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, and Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina. Donald Trump did qualify for the debate. He chose not to attend. And we now will focus on those 5 candidates who will be there. And because there is such a distance in the polls, guys, I'm really wondering, and David, maybe we start with you, about what you're looking for tonight from the 5 candidates who will be participating.
Well, I think it'll be clear that Nikki Haley is going to be the clear choice. I mean, she's really established herself in the past 2 debates. And, some people may be turned off by strong, powerful women. But
we're not in this room right now.
No, we are not.
And so, and that's why I'm here. I mean, it's not. And, not only was she very instrumental in bringing the United Nations in line, but she also did a great job as governor of South Carolina. And, Tim Scott wouldn't even be up on that stage if she hadn't appointed him as a senator. So I think she's going to stand out. I mean, Chris Christie, we know where he's coming from. He's going to be, the bully in the room.
Right.
And the others are going to do basically what they've done in the past debates. But I think when it's all said and done, she's going to be right there at the top of the list.
Jeffi, what are you going to be looking for tonight?
Well, I had the pleasure during the GOP convention to have a press pass. So I got to see the majority of these people speak in person that were there. Chris Christie, I don't know why he's even up there. I'm not a fan. Haley out of the 5 is definitely my hands down favorite. I was not a fan of Tim Scott when I saw him in person. I actually left that debate that early. Yes, and Vivek I left early also. I found Vivek to be... I think he's in his sheep's clothing. I don't think he's a true Republican. I don't think that he's capable of doing all the things he says he's going to do. And I don't really like a candidate that talks above the people that are the ones that are supporting him. And I just think that he's just not a great candidate for us. But I love Haley. I think Haley has a great option. She's a great speaker. She knows foreign policy. She is really the most rounded candidate as far as experience goes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that certainly experience, and definitely if you look at the surprise standout of the last 2 debates, Nikki Haley has definitely jumped into at least Well, at worst, a tie for second place. And in many polls, she's actually now clearly in second place. She's taken down Ron DeSantis, who was in that position before. I do think that Nikki Haley, the one thing that's a positive, and we just are fresh off of election night. Last night, we had 6 states that went to go vote. They turned out. Abortion was a huge issue for them. And it was an election that was really a referendum on abortion. The one person who has been very clear, I think, about a stance that maybe Republicans could get behind is Nikki Haley. How much of a factor do you think it is that she's a woman able to give life to that issue that is going to be at the center stage? Unfortunately, I think for conservatives, it's not great to have that be single issue, but that's what Democrats are going to press.
Well, they will. But, what I always say, if you have to agree 100% on a candidate, then you have to be the candidate. Because
I endorse myself.
No one else does.
You have to step into the arena yourself. Otherwise, you're going to have to look at the greater good. What is, look at who is going to be the best public servant, who is going to be the best leader. And if you're a single issue voter, well, you're going to be very disappointed. We saw that, especially when Mitt Romney ran against Barack Obama.
Right.
You had single issue voters that wouldn't vote for Romney. He was a Mormon. And guess what? We ended up with more of the policies that they were against, by not voting, because not voting is actually voting for the other candidate.
Absolutely. So let's go through each of these candidates. We've gone through Nikki Haley now. We think that she probably, there's no reason to think that or doubt that she will probably have one of the stronger performances tonight. That's what she's done. Ron DeSantis has been struggling, almost a crisis of self. Great job, governor of Florida. But when he stepped up, for me, there's just a lack of charisma that makes it on the main stage. He just doesn't seem to have that it factor. I think his policies are right, but you also have to connect to the heart of voters. And he seems to struggle with that, especially in a debate setting. And we almost lose him sometimes on stage because everybody else is so loud around him. What do you think is the goal tonight, David, for Ron DeSantis, who wants to stay in second place, and he's got a challenger like Nikki Haley who's trying to take that away from him?
Well, I think his background, his life experiences, being in the military, being a SEAL, we are on the verge of a very volatile world right now. We have, Hezbollah, going in as well into Israel with Hamas, with Iran and all of that. We're going to need a very strong military. And I think his background, what he brings as a former military person is something that we're going to need right now. Is that going to be enough? Probably not. Because there's so many other issues that are going on with the economy, the price of food, China. All these different things locally. Although he's been very good in going after CRT, going after the whole transgender in education and women's sports. So he's good in that area. But I think if he really emphasizes his military strength and experience, that's going to be a plus that the others don't have.
And one of the things that DeSantis has done, Jeffi, is he's actually brought people home from Israel, Americans that were stuck. And that's something that the Biden administration hasn't done. And while we kind of look and see how these players are playing against each other, we ultimately have to remember that they're going to have to play against Joe Biden if they're lucky enough to make it that far.
Well, and all the things that you say, David, are actually 100% correct. I think that he has to win over the American public. And I think that's going to be his biggest strife, is that Nikki Haley can straddle the Democrat-Republican line. He just can't do it. I think he has a very, very difficult time winning the Democrats over. And I think he's done a lot of fabulous things in Florida. That's great. I don't see how he's going to create that throughout the rest of the country when you have a lot of very hard red states. Which state was it that we just had a red governor? I forget who just won last night.
Tate from Mississippi?
Yeah, was it Tate from Mississippi?
Governor Tate's the Republican, and then Beshear is the Democrat from Kentucky.
Okay, so that state has had a lot of struggle. It's going purple. How is he going to maneuver that?
Yeah, it's a great question.
You know what I mean? How's he going to maneuver the states that are straddling, that went from a hard red, they're sliding into blue, when you have people that are in. I mean, I don't see him being able to straddle that.
We'll
fence.
see how he looks tonight. We've got more debate coverage coming up ahead. We will continue to go through the candidates on the stage. And of course, we'll get into the Trump factor. David Hernandez, Jeffi Girgenti, Jennifer Horn, debate night coverage right here on The Answer continues. Okay, we're going to keep going.
Very nice.
That's right.
All right, an extra minute given to us. Well, how exciting is that? Okay, so let's jump into Vivek Ramaswamy then, who is the candidate for me that has been the biggest disappointment. He came out strong. He says all the right things. I like to call him, if you're a listener to the Morning Answer, I call him the steak that needs a little bit more searing. So, he's really good. He's a steak, but he needs to be cooked just a little bit more, just a little more time on the grill. So we will check in. Now we're up against that break. Vivek Ramaswamy, we will talk about Chris Christie and Tim Scott. Also, I think an interesting story to tell here. Debate night coverage does continue. David Hernandez, Jeffi Girgenti, Jennifer Horn, all together for The Answer's debate night coverage.
Debate coverage on The Answer returns in 3 minutes. Debate coverage on The Answer returns in 2 minutes. Debate coverage on The Answer returns in 1 minute. Debate coverage on The Answer returns in 30 seconds. Debate coverage on The Answer returns in 15 seconds.
Debate night coverage starts now on The Answer with Jennifer Horn, David Hernandez, and Jeffi Girgenti.
Thank you for joining us. It is The Answer's Debate Night pre-show. We are kicking things off. It's like a debate party around here. I'm Jennifer Horn. I host the Morning Answer. Hope you'll join us tomorrow for a complete wrap-up of the debate. The Trump rally coming up tonight. That's 6 to 9 a.m., of course, in the morning. And I'm joined by my friends, David Hernandez, Jeffi Girgenti. We are in studio together going through the preview of tonight's debate. They are the hosts, of course, and you should join them weekends, Saturdays, right here on AM 870, The Answer, the LA Hispanic Republican Club radio show. David Hernandez, Jeffi Girgenti, thanks for being with me today.
Love to be in here.
Our pleasure.
All right, so we know that there are going to be 5 Republicans on the stage tonight. We know that it's Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, former UN ambassador, former governor of South Carolina. Nikki Haley is going to be there. Vivek Ramaswamy, kind of the wild card. I call him a steak that needs more charring because he started out really strong, but something has happened. And I don't know if that's people going, maybe he's not everything he seems. Maybe he's doing too many of the right things at the right time. Maybe there's an opportunist here. I don't know. There's just something that has sort of dissipated a bit or declined about Vivek's candidacy,
Well,
David.
when things like his scholarship through the Soros family comes up, and then he tries to deny it or tries to hide it, it's like, stuff like that, it's just too blatant to ignore.
Right.
I mean, he obviously he's very sharp. He's very bright. He's articulate. He's reminds me of Barack Obama. And but once you start these little inconsistencies, we'll say, come to light, it's like, wait a minute. The term Manchurian candidate starts to come to mind.
Well, it's funny, David, when you bring up the fact that he sounds kind of like Obama. If you listen to him, he sounds exactly like Obama.
Yeah.
And I saw him in person. I covered him in press during the California GOP convention that we had here. And it was interesting because he wanted to bring up 2008 and how we failed and how we got to where we are now. And he even said, he goes, my people are saying that the majority of people aren't going to understand this. And that for me was the problem with him, is that he has this attitude of they're not going to understand it. And I think, to me, that's probably what you're seeing, is that he is not understanding the American people. He seems like he's standing on a tower looking down at the rest of us. And yeah, he's highly intelligent, but that doesn't mean that we don't understand what happened in 2008, and that doesn't help us where we are now.
Right.
He doesn't have a solution, in my opinion, that's going to work based on what he saw happen in 2008.
It's interesting because it's about that connection again, too, which we go back to where Ron DeSantis is really kind of having a hard time making the connection to people's heart. He says the right things. His policies are right. I think in many ways that is Vivek right now. I think he was connecting with people and somehow he lost them.
Right.
And I think that's a campaign failure. He also tonight, David, apparently we are hearing, according to reports from Breitbart, is going to be unveiling a no to neocons pledge. Which he's going to ask his fellow candidates to sign if they want to serve in his administration if he wins the presidency. Now, this will probably go over like a lead balloon. Forget the merits of what he's asking them to do. But when he says, would you like to sign this to serve in my administration? I'm guessing maybe Chris Christie might tell him to pound sand. What do you think?
Well, they're going to say, so no neocon. So that means that we're not going to live up to any of our agreements, any of our obligations, any of our pledges to protect other countries that, is it going to be like prior to World War II, where we're just sitting back and letting England and letting all these Poland and all these countries being run over by the Nazis and just say it's not our war?
And I think, there is that piece of the Republican Party that wants to stay out of it. In fact, echoed by some really smart thinkers and some top talk time. I mean, Tucker Carlson is very much, let's stay out of the fray, essentially. The pledge, according to Breitbart's reporting on it, is comprised of 3 tenets. One, requiring them to regard avoiding a third world war as a vital national objective. Now, if you get into the White House and your objective is to get into a third world war, I think we have a lot of problems. War, he says, is never the preference, only a necessity, and that's sole duty of the U.S. policymakers to the U.S. So this, I think, is probably something for him to do, to throw in the face of others, to try to maybe elevate himself by saying, well, if you come to work for me.
It sounds like a stunt.
Exactly.
It sounds like a Neville Chamberlain stunt.
Exactly what I said. It's exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
And you know what? We have a problem. Israel's our ally. They are the only democratic nation in that part of the world, and we need them.
Yeah, and we need them to defend themselves
Yes, we
because
do.
they're, all the people calling for a ceasefire. There was a ceasefire before October 7th, and there is no longer a ceasefire because it
Exactly.
was broken by Hamas terrorists. Now, moving on to, let's go to Senator Tim Scott, because I like Senator Tim Scott very much. I think he's got a good heart. I think he does this. He wants to be a public servant for the right reasons, but it is almost like he has not been on the stage in the previous two debates.
Right.
And Jeffi, you mentioned seeing him at the GOP convention. There's just kind of that lack of showbiz, but here's what I'd float to. I think maybe the most important thing I'm watching for, as someone who is a Trump supporter and President Trump is not going to be on the stage tonight, is can Senator Tim Scott maybe get himself enough attention, separate himself from the pack, and actually be considered as a serious vice presidential candidate for Donald Trump?
Okay, so in a vice president, I would like him as a vice president for Donald Trump. I think he'd be good for that. I think that he is intelligent. I think he's well spoken. I think he's funny. And I think he does connect with the public.
Yeah.
He's one of the few candidates besides Haley on that stage that actually really does connect with the public. As a vice president, yes. As a president, no. I really don't think he has enough experience to be out there to be a president. But I think if he did become vice president to Trump, although I would like Haley as a vice president too, if she doesn't.
I think that will never happen at this
I think it'll
moment.
never happen
Yeah.
either. But if we were to take Tim Scott on a ticket with Trump, I think it could be a beautiful ticket, and I think it could give him the experience he needs, and we could have him as a wonderful president at that point. But right now, I just don't think he serves. He doesn't serve enough in public right now.
Fire, exactly.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, you need to be more of a flamethrower, and Tim Scott is not. But I think that's what makes him a great contender to be Trump's vice president, because in many ways, obviously, conservatives have taken issue with Mike Pence over the last, since January 6th. But with Mike Pence, he didn't steal Trump's spotlight. He provided a sense of seriousness. I think in many ways, Tim Scott provides that. And South Carolina is an important state, so he can deliver.
I think that Tim Scott would have really stood out if he came across like Larry Elder.
Yeah.
I mean, because, we saw in the past two debates, the flamethrowers, and Tim is kind of like this, watching
He's cool.
the salvos go by, and he's maintaining his,
Right.
his proper decor.
He stays out of the fray.
And meanwhile, that's why we don't get to hear from him, because everybody else is talking. But if he, in the time left, he should probably hire Larry as his campaign manager and speechwriter. And I think then all of a sudden, not only would you have that connection, but you'd be talking about issues that here is an opportunity. And I think that's what Larry brought. The opportunity that was really lost is that you would have had a person of color addressing the racism issue that is, permeating the conversation today.
And really interesting, too, to note that Larry Elder has had some in-depth conversations with Donald Trump. Now, he says not about business opportunities, but I'm sure Larry might be on a list of potential vice presidential candidates for Donald Trump, too. More on that here in just a few moments. David Hernandez, Jeffi Girgenti, all together tonight for the Answers debate night coverage. Up ahead, what are we expecting from the moderators? And, of course, the Trump factor. All as debate night coverage comes down the pike. It is the Answer debate night just a few moments away. Thanks for joining us.
Debate coverage on The Answer returns in 3 minutes. Debate covered on The Answer returns in 2 minutes. Debate covered on The Answer returns in 1 minute. Debate covered on The Answer returns in 30 seconds. Debate covered on The Answer returns in 15 seconds.
You found The Answer's RNC debate night coverage. Here are Jennifer Horn, David Hernandez, and Jeffi Girgenti.
Thank you for joining us. And yes, it is. You have found The Answer's debate night coverage. We are your pre-show, guys. We are the warm-up act because coming up at the top of the hour, it is going to be on the third Republican National Committee debate. 5 candidates on the stage, complete coverage right here on The Answer. You don't have to move a muscle. If you'd like to see the video version, you can tune into the Salem News Channel, NBC News, also a host of this debate. After the debate is over, that'll be at 7 o'clock our time. Well, that's when the spin room heats up, and you'll have our Salem colleagues all in full effect. You'll be able to get their commentary and hear from the candidates as they exit the stage. On the stage tonight, 5 candidates. Governor Ron DeSantis, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley. You've got Senator Tim Scott, businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, and Chris Christie, former governor of New Jersey, the only one we have not yet spoken about. So let's pick up with Chris Christie. And it was kind of funny. We were laughing off the air that there's not much more that you can say about Chris Christie because he shows you who he is. The guy is loud and proud.
Yep.
I will say that as much as I am he's fallen from favor with me, David, Chris Christie is a good debater. And even if he is falling behind in many of the polls, which he is, except in the state of New Hampshire where he shows up in 4th place, Chris Christie tells you what he wants you to know, and people hear him because he cuts through the noise.
Well, being from New Jersey, first, I've got a lot of friends from New Jersey, and they're great. I mean, that's the
style.
That's a plus. I mean, they're just so many, and they're in a lot of different in the music industry. A lot of talent from there. And like you said, he lets you know where he stands, but sometimes his delivery detracts from the institutional knowledge that he has. So you're focusing on him being a bully rather than the context of what he's saying. I mean, basically, he's the one that when he challenged our Manchurian candidate, basically said, "Oh, you're just another Obama type with a funny name."
He called Vivek AI as well. Remember that?
Yeah, and so it's like outlandish remarks like that. really detract from his, like I said, his institutional knowledge of how things should work.
Right.
I mean, he knows how things should work, which also he has abused. And when he shut down the traffic from that mayor who wouldn't support him, so there's
Bridgegate.
Bridgegate. So there's that vindictiveness that I don't think really serves well for someone who wants to be president.
Jeffi, what do you think about Chris Christie?
Well, I just think that he does not resonate with the West Coast.
Yeah.
He's an East Coast guy. He's got that East Coast way about him. He doesn't offend New Yorkers. He doesn't offend people from New Jersey. But when you start getting middle America, they're farmers, they're business owners, they're laid back people. You get to the West Coast, and we're just not that way. We don't like to be abused. We don't like to be in your face. That's we are somewhat. But I do, like David said, and what we said off air was that he has a very abusive way about him, and I think that I cannot even imagine what he would be like to deal with the Arab countries in the situation we're in right now. I don't imagine he'd gather any respect from anybody in the Middle East, and they run things differently, and I don't see him being very charismatic about that.
Now, we do have to, of course, talk about the 6'3" gorilla in the room. No, I left out.
Or you mean the elephant not in the room?
The elephant not in the room, right. So President Trump has chosen to skip all 3 of the RNC debates so far. Now,
What's he really afraid of?
Well, I don't think he's afraid of anything, but we're going to talk about that because I think that there are some opinions about whether or not he should be there. Let me just tell you where President Trump is in the polls here. He is leading the polls right now, 58% to Ron DeSantis' 14%. So does he really need to be there? The Trump factor will be in the spotlight for us, of course, as debate night coverage continues. David Hernandez, Jeffi Girgenti from the LA Hispanic Republican Club radio show. I'm Jennifer Horn from The Morning Answer. Debate night continues right here on The Answer.
Debate coverage on The Answer returns in 4 minutes. Debate covered on The Answer returns in 3 minutes. Debate covered on The Answer returns in 2 minutes. Debate covered on The Answer returns in 15 seconds.
Debate night coverage starts now on The Answer with Jennifer Horn, David Hernandez, and Jeffi Girgenti.
Welcome to your third Republican debate night pre-show right here on The Answer. I'm Jennifer Horn, host of The Morning Answer. Tune in to us 6 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. And while you're out jetting around on the weekends, you have to tune into my co-host for the evenings, David Hernandez, Jeffi Girgenti. They are here on Saturdays with the LA Hispanic Republican Club radio show. David Hernandez, Jeffi Girgenti. So glad to do this with you tonight. So much fun.
Thanks for having us.
Yep.
Now, Salem Radio is a partner in this debate, so you will get coverage of the third Republican debate coming up right at the top of the hour sharp, followed by post-debate analysis with all of our favorite Salem colleagues here. Hugh Hewitt's going to be moderating tonight alongside Kristen Welker and Lester Holt. Now, one person who will not be at the debate tonight, but will be just down the street, David Hernandez. He is going to be doing his own rally where he's going to be endorsed officially by Arkansas governor and his former press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. President Trump has chosen to sit these debates out. Now, I think it's a good idea because everyone else is so far behind him. He doesn't have to be on the stage. And I really feel wholeheartedly about that because he was the former president. Going back on the stage with people, it makes it feel to me like a step down. But David, I know you disagree. So do you think Trump should be on that stage tonight?
Absolutely. And does he need to be? No. But should he be, to respect the process? I mean, he is acting like an incumbent, a Democrat incumbent who refuses to debate a challenger. Not that the challenger even has a chance of winning, but you're going to get a different perspective on the issues. I ran for Congress in 2002 and 2004 against Howard Berman. 2002, he wouldn't debate me, but 2004, his synagogue called for a debate. And it was good because they got a different perspective. He was the open border candidate, and I was for border control. I think that the process that we have, from 2016 and the 4 years that President Trump was in office, this is not the same world today. I mean, since October 7th, the world is in a very volatile state. People have a right to know what his position is, what his actions, how far is he willing to take this?
See, and where I push back a little bit on that, and then Jeffi jump in here, is that people do know what the Trump platform is. We know what it means to make America great again. We know what his foreign policy looks like because we lived it for 4 years. So it's not like he's someone that's unknown to us. I would agree with you if he was someone that's unknown, but he's not. He's known
not.
to us. He was the president for 4 years. We know what he stands for. He has these rallies. It's not like he's hiding out in his basement like Joe Biden. And I almost think, and I really think the difference, and I hear your heart because as a candidate, when you're a candidate, you want to debate the other side. So I get it. It's got to be frustrating for the candidates on the stage who would like to get their hands on Donald Trump. But he was the former president. He is someone we know. Do we really need to see him on that stage when all they're going to do is scream and yell at him?
If he can't handle these 5 people, how is he going to handle Hamas, Hezbollah? How is he going to handle North Korea?
Jeffi, jump in on that.
I'm going to disagree. So
I don't think it's about handling.
I don't think it is either. I think that had he been president, we wouldn't have had these issues to begin with. So that's the first thing I'm going to say.
That's not the question on the table.
No, but the question on the table is, should he be at the debates? And the answer to me is no, for a lot of the reasons that you're saying, Jennifer. The other reason I don't think he needs to be at the debate table is because these people are so far behind, and he is another Chris Christie in some ways, that he jumps in there and he starts beating people up. You're never going to hear what any of these people have to say. He won't give them a second to speak. So for me,
that's not a plus.
But it doesn't matter. It's giving these. It's not a plus or a negative for me to be in the debate. For me, it's about let's let these candidates shine and let the American public make a decision.
And here's why. I mean, just listen to these numbers, just real quick, because we were up against a break before, so we went through them quickly. But nationally, in the GOP, Trump has 58.3%. DeSantis, his closest competitor nationally, is 14.6. Haley's at 9.4. Ramaswamy is at 4.4. Now, we could go through the state polls, but on a national level, which is what we'll look at here since this is a national debate.
Right.
President Trump is way far out there. So,
he's way far out there amongst these 5. But who is in the lead nationally against Joe Biden? And when it comes down to it, it's not about beating these 5 people. It's about beating Joe Biden.
I agree with you.
Who was in the lead?
So let's go through that because there are the general election matchups, and this is Real Clear Politics right now. So you're going to see all of the polls brought together. So the 3 top Republican candidates were put head to head against Joe Biden. DeSantis does the worst. He loses to Biden by 0.4, which I would imagine is probably within the margin of error. Trump beats Biden by 1.4. Nikki Haley beats Biden by 2.7.
Exacto.
But I would say, while that might be true at this moment, and I'm not trying to diminish Nikki Haley, but because she is more of the unknown, people have turned on her they haven't turned on her yet. They will when they get the full force of the Democrat Party coming at her. So because she's a little newer, a little fresher, I think she probably has that benefit. I would imagine I think any of those Republican candidates, Chris Christie included, who's probably my least favorite on the stage, they would get my support if they were running against Joe Biden. But there are people on the opposite side of the aisle who feel the same way about Joe Biden. Even if they don't like him, they'll still vote for him. So who can win over independent voters is the question. And I think what debates are supposed to do is show people your policy. We don't know what Nikki Haley looks like as president, but I can tell you, I can draw you on this little piece of paper that I have here, an A-B column over Trump policies and Biden policies. And so I think for me, that's most attractive about Trump and my support for him. But certainly when we talk about whether or not he has to be on the stage, we could sit here and write down the Trump policies because we know them.
Right.
Do we know the same thing about Nikki Haley, which is what she's tasked with tonight to tell people about her policies?
When you look at the moderators, because you have, we have Hugh Hewitt, who was on before you in the morning, but you look at the other ones, the audiences from those, I think it would be good for those independents to see Donald Trump up there in responding to some of the accusations that we know that Chris Christie would come up with, but also that they would be able to see how Nikki Haley would perform in a debate with Donald Trump. And and for me, this is kind of like Joe Biden refusing to debate Robert F. Kennedy, and so much so that he became an independent, which is, I think, in the end, is going to really benefit our Republican candidate.
I hope so. I'm not sure about that. I think he becomes the guy that people who are kind of in the middle go, well, maybe he's neither Donald Trump or Joe Biden, because there is a strong dislike for both of these guys, actually, by people in the middle. So it's interesting. All right, we'll chime in more. The Trump factor, of course, in full effect. Also, what do we want to see from the moderators in tonight's debate? Remember, the debate starts right at the top of the hour. Do not miss a minute right here on AM 870, AM 590, The Answer, Salem News Channel, and of course our partner in this debate, NBC News. Make sure you watch, tune in, full coverage on the Morning Answer tomorrow, and more up ahead. The Answers Debate Night coverage with Jennifer Horn, David Hernandez, Jeffi Girgenti continues.
Debate coverage on The Answer returns in 2 minutes. Debate coverage on The Answer returns in 1 minute. Debate coverage on The Answer returns in 30 seconds. Debate coverage on The Answer returns in 15 seconds.
You found The Answers RNC Debate Night coverage. Here are Jennifer Horn, David Hernandez, and Jeffi Girgenti.
Thank you for joining us. We are excited. It is Salem Radio's Debate Night coverage right here on The Answer, AM 870, AM 590, The Answer. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jennifer Horn, host of The Morning Answer. Tune in tomorrow, 6 to 9 a.m. for a full wrap-up. And joining me today, the host of the LA Hispanic Republican Radio Club. Wait, no, Club Radio Show. Holy smoke, I did it right the whole day. It's just a lot of words. It's been a long day. But let me do it again. You ready? The LA Hispanic Republican Club Radio Show. See, you can put them all in order. David Hernandez. Jeffi Girgenti. Tune into them Saturdays here on AM 870. And guys, I'm having so much fun with you. Thanks for being in studio with me.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Now, the moderators are just as important to this debate, maybe even more so than the candidates.
More so.
Because they're the ones who bring up the issues, they're the ones who ask the questions, and they're the ones who keep order. And as someone who's moderated debates before, this can be, and David, you were at one that was interrupted by Antifa once. It's hard to keep order with candidates that want to talk, with crowds that can be crazy. It's not an easy job. But the first two debates, the moderators, as much as I think individually they really tried hard.
Yeah, they lost control.
So what do you want to see tonight from tonight's moderators, Lester Holt, Kristen Welker, and Hugh Hewitt.
So you have 3 people that are anti-Trump?
Hugh Hewitt, I think, is going to be as close to the middle ground as we can find. I know he's going to do his best to be fair.
Oh, well, then that's
I feel like he's gonna
that's
be
really
fair.
all that we want.
Absolutely.
But what's fair?
Well, here's what's fair
The
to
fair's
me.
in Pomona.
Fair to me is I don't want to know who the moderator is going to vote for. I don't want to know who the moderator likes most on stage. I just want the moderator to ask questions that are meaningful to the people watching. That to me is fair.
But how about if we ask questions that are meaningful to the general public that want to know answers to?
Agreed.
You know, right now we've got the Democrats against the Republicans on an abortion issue. That's their one and only issue. But let's talk about what we have on our radio show almost every week, and that is what our parents are having to deal with in schools.
Amen.
This is throughout the entire country, and Ron DeSantis, to his benefit, has done a lot in his own state to make sure that parents have a right to raise their own children.
That's right.
These moderators need to come into what's going on today and ask questions regarding what's going on right now and what do our parents have in their court. And that's what I think they need to ask. We need to know what these candidates think about whether or not parents have a right to make a decision for their kids. Do the schools have a right to decide whether or not parents have the option to opt out on education on LGBTQ issues or transgendered issues or even sex issues? These are things that should be left to parents, and these moderators need to be addressing these questions directly to these candidates to find out how they feel. Because I want to know how Haley would answer that question.
Correct. And Tim Scott
Yes.
and Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, these are very important issues that have been ignored. They've been iced out. Now, I do want to ask you this question, David. And for those of you who don't know, David Hernandez is an incredible person who has really put his heart and soul into improving California. You've run in races. You are working with the GOP here in California. Do we, in our final moment here, do we feel like the RNC does a disservice when they don't focus completely on those conservative issues? And we just have a few seconds here.
No, because we're looking at getting independents to vote as well. And so the red meat issues, those are great, but we have to be, our tent has to be a lot bigger than what we say. If we want to win, then we need to address some of
everybody
those issues.
in the pool.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. David Hernandez, Jeffi Girgenti, tune in this Saturday, AM 870, for the LA Hispanic Republican Club radio show. Check that out. Check out the Morning Answer tomorrow, and stay with The Answer all evening long. Debate night coverage. We've got our post-debate analysis, and if you're ready, the third Republican national debate hosted by our colleague Hugh Hewitt and Lester Holt from NBC News, Kristen Welker as well, starts right now.